The navigation and communication, or Nav Com frequency controls, are located in the top corners of the PFD and MFD. The frequencies themselves appear to the right and the left of the status bar on the top of both the PFD and MFD. The controls and the frequencies shown are identical on both the PFD and MFD. The COM controls and COM frequency window are located to the right side of the display. The active frequency appears in green on the G1000 displays, and control of which frequency is active for transmission is done using the audio panel. A standby frequency is shown in white and inside a cyan tuning box. Let's change this to the ATIS frequency for our departure airport of Beverly, Mass. 119.2. Turn the large outer knob for megahertz selection and the small inner knob for kilohertz selection. Swap the standby and active frequencies with the frequency toggle button. Only the standby frequency shown in the cyan tuning box can be changed. In this case, that's the standby for COM 1. To change the standby frequency for the other radio, push the small COM tuning knob. Now the COM tuning knobs and frequency toggle button control COM 2 instead of COM 1. The volume control only changes the volume for the active radio, with the volume level replacing the tuning box. Pushing the volume knob turns off automatic squelch and lets you hear the radio volume, or a very weak signal. Pushing the knob again turns auto squelch back on. Holding down the frequency toggle button puts the emergency frequency 121.5 directly into the active COM field of the active radio. Note that if the G1000 detects a failure of the frequency tuning system, the emergency frequency of 121.5 is automatically tuned into the radio where the tuning failure occurred. The nav controls and frequency window are located to the left side of the display and are used to tune VOR and localizer frequencies. To choose which nav radio is being used for navigation, use the CDI soft key on the PFD. Your choices are GPS navigation, which is shown with a single magenta line on the CDI and with both nav frequencies shown in white. Nav Radio 1, which is shown as a single green line on the HSI and a green active frequency. And Nav Radio 2, which is shown as a double green line and a green active frequency. Continue pushing the CDI soft key to repeat the cycle. As with COM frequencies, the active frequency, that is, a frequency being used by the G1000 for navigation, appears in green. This sometimes confuses pilots new to the G1000 because the active frequency is on the right side of the display, nearest the status bar. The tuning box is cyan and works like the COM tuning box. Enter megahertz frequency numbers using the large knob and kilohertz numbers using the small knob. Push the frequency toggle button to make the standby frequency active. The G1000 automatically tries to decode the Morse code identifier. If it is successful, it will show the frequency ID beside the active frequency. In this case, it has identified the Lawrence VOR on 112.5. To hear the Morse code ID over the intercom, you must listen to the appropriate radio on the audio panel and push the nav volume knob. The letters ID will replace the cyan frequency swap arrows. Remember, this is identifying the frequency on the right side of the display. Like the COM radios, you can switch the cyan tuning box between the number 1 and number 2 nav radios by pushing the small nav tuning knob. Pressing the nearest soft key on the PFD allows auto-tuning of communication frequencies associated with the nearest airports. On our flight, we will be heading from Beverly Airport to Minuteman Airport, 6 Bravo 6. Turn the outer FMS knob to scroll down to the communication frequency you need. In this case, Unicom for 6 Bravo 6. Press Enter to load that frequency into the COM tuning box and the frequency toggle button to make it active in our number 2 radio. Note that the frequencies change on both the PFD and the MFD, so it doesn't matter which display you use. However, the MFD allows auto-tuning of both navigation and communication frequencies from the waypoint and nearest page groups. To load the frequency from the nearest pages to the MFD, turn the large FMS knob on the MFD 3 times clockwise to the nearest group. Push the Airport soft key to get a cursor in the airport list at the top of the screen. Scroll clockwise with the small FMS knob to select the airport of your choice. Note how the MFD map shows the route to the selected airport. Push the Frequency soft key to get a cursor in the frequency list for the selected airport, in this case, Boston Logan. Scroll clockwise with the small or large FMS knob to select the frequency you want to use. We could select the flight service frequency for Boston as the nearest flight service station to open a VFR flight plan. Note that some frequencies show RX or TX for receive only or transmit only. Push Enter to load the frequency in the appropriate tuning box and have the FSS frequency standing by. You can also load VOR frequencies in this way. Push the center of the FMS knob to turn off the flashing cursor. Now turn the small FMS knob clockwise to change from the nearest airport page to the nearest VOR page. Push the VOR soft key to get a cursor in the VOR list. Scroll down to BOS with the small FMS knob. Push the Frequency soft key. Push Enter to load the VOR frequency for Boston into standby. Push the Frequency Swap button to make the frequency active and available for navigation. As a rule, if you can highlight a frequency on the G1000 with a cursor, pushing Enter will put that frequency in the cyan tuning box of the appropriate COM or NAV radio. Remember, there are many ways to accomplish the same task on the G1000. We loaded an FSS frequency from the nearest airport page, but there is also a nearest FSS page where we could have accomplished the same task and even seen the name of the FSS facility. In the next topic, we will look at getting frequencies and other information